is Jacqueline Adibijan. This evening we'll be talking about encouraging accountability in education. Now, the educational sector in Nigeria is one that has been beleaguered by all sorts of challenges, whether you're talking about the technical aspect of it or you're talking about the theoretical aspect of it. We're just beset with all sorts of problems. And that is why when there's a bright spot, we try to highlight that also. Now, my guest today is not a stranger, but it's been a while that we've had her in the house. I'm pleased to welcome Gloria Balasin, Esquire, right? I should be having Esquire there. Gloria, you're welcome once again to the studios of Invicta.
Jackie, it's always a privilege to converse with you. I remember the first time I was in the studio with you and what that has done in terms of ushering me into that space. And I know it's a world where people like to talk about the negatives more than the positive, but I want to publicly thank you for your impact in my life and for the ability to be here this evening. And thank you for everything you're doing for us.
Thank you too, Gloria. Thank you, because I must say that when the news broke last week that you had won, I would call it a landmark case, where you, on behalf of a student, decided to take on the university, not just one lecturer, but the university, because if there's anything that students, especially tertiary institution students, will tell you, is that lecturers know how to band. They know how to, the cohesion amongst them, especially when it comes to them against students, is really, really thick. And so that's why I'm saying you took on the tertiary institution of the University of Jos. Yeah. I just need for you to run us through what really took place and why. It blew my mind, and that's why it gives hope. This story actually gives hope to all those people, students especially out there, who think that they do not have a voice. There is nothing for them in Nigeria. There are situations like this, actually, they give you hope. That's the best way. I'm looking for other words, but they give you hope.
Yeah.
So, Gloria, tell us what really what happened, and why did you decide to take up this case?
So when you mentioned that there's a lot of cohesion amongst the lecturers, and especially in the tertiary institution, it's perhaps that's what the bedrock is in this case. So the case is the case of Georgia McDowell against the University of Jos and Thaddeus Longdude, who is the lecturer in question. And Georgia had applied for masters in economics in the University of Jos and had gone through her coursework and had done her 6 chapters of her thesis, did the seminar, did the internal examination, and there was just the external left. And Mr. Thaddeus Longdude, who was her supervisor, continued to make it very difficult for her. She is a married woman, and so she suffered miscarriages, actually 6 miscarriages, while trying to get this done. And I mentioned that because of the peculiar challenge that comes with women who want to continue education. And so, she tried to say, well, the time span for me to even, do this master's program is not yet over. It wasn't yet the 2 years statutory period. In any case, as you would know, 2 years is the minimum period. There could still be an extension.
Right.
And then the prospectus of the University of Jos says that if somebody, fails course, they'll be asked you carry over that course. And if you have failed like 3/4 of the courses, then you will be advised to then leave. She neither got an advisory, and nobody ever showed her results. She was the only person who was taken out of the program, a master's program. Meanwhile, the period had not elapsed. And so on the day for the external examination,
Just to be clear, the university actually wrote her a letter telling her, or was this verbal? Was she just told verbally?
No, this was what we found out well, just before we went to court. Because when this happened, she then contacted me and I said, you know what, write, because you've got to exhaust the remedies, the internal remedies before you even go to court. Write to the office of the Vice Chancellor and as a petition and say, okay, you want for this matter to be reviewed, your academic qualifications and also the suffering that you went through with the lecturer. And she did so. She wrote and she went to the office of the Vice Chancellor. So while she was sitting in the room, the parlor before the Vice Chancellor's office, she was just there, and then incidentally, this lecturer shows up. And he asked her, what are you doing here? And she says, well, I came to see somebody. She submitted her letter. And 2 weeks after, she returned to follow up the letter. And they said they had no letter like that on the record. So she calls me and she says, well, this is what has happened. What am I going to do? And I said, just calm down. The same letter, send it via speed post. And she sent it via speed post and then received a reply right from the university saying this lecturer has never had a problem with anybody and that she failed her courses, and nobody sat her down, nobody set up a committee to investigate her allegations, nobody showed her result, because this was what we're saying, let there be access to the result, let me even know did I fail, and nothing like that. So I filed the case, and typically people would say, oh yeah, she'll be victimized even if she goes back, but I was very particular about what to file. Because I have suffered lecturer victimization before in the undergraduate and postgraduate, and I know many people who have had that deliberate that kind of victimization, and I thought that there's a need for us to shift the conversation not just from the universities but to the actual people who cause the kind of pain that students do not have to go to. And so we did that filing. And when we got to court, he filed a process and said, well, he needed his name to be struck out because it's the university's liability. And we said, no, his name cannot be struck out because he is the one who caused the chain of events that led to this lady being taken out. And we also applied that we wanted to see the scores, we wanted to see the exams, we wanted to see the marking scheme, and in the unlikely event that it was not well marked, that they should bring up another lecturer to remark. And their argument before the court was that the court cannot get involved in the domestic affairs. But you see, the law that they were relying on says, except where there is no fair hearing. And our argument was that there is no fair hearing. If she alleged that she had a problem with the lecturer, then you've got to set up a committee to investigate, to hear both sides. And that was not done. We also said we had written to the school and we said we needed to see all of this, and nothing like that was done. So that is just the background of the case.
What happened.
Yes.
And here we are, that the court found in favor of Georgia Davo.
Yes.
That indeed, I must tell you, gives me goosebumps, because in a country where you hear students coming to tell you that I had to repeat a year, or in fact, I had to pull out of school and reapply because my files mysteriously got missing. In an educational climb where you hear a lecturer boasting that I will show you, you will not finish from this school,
and
nothing will happen. This Georgia Davo's case, in other climes we might even begin to have a law, Davo's law or something that would push that students should be able to find succor somehow. I mean, in a place like America, that's what you would find. You would find you have Schuyler's law, all sorts of laws because of situations that happen to people. Now, I don't know if we've had a case like this in Nigeria where the court is finding in favor of the student as against a lecturer. But I must first tell you that, thank you, first and foremost. Now, let's move on to what do we hope to see in the coming months? Because I know that I saw 100,000 first and then 5 million. This was found in favor of the student.
Yeah.
What's going to happen? Is this going to come from the lecturer or from the school? This I'm asking so that schools, I mean, there are a lot of people listening, so that people will begin to know the responsibility that is upon them, either as lecturers or as an institution, a tertiary, or in fact, because we're going to even go down to primary, some cases we had before you came into the studio. So I want to throw those questions at you. But before then, what do we hope to see in the coming weeks?
So the judgment is that 5 million was awarded against the lecturer, 4 million as general damages, 1 million as exemplary damages. That is, we argue as sample.
100,000 to the school to pay her, and then she has to be reinstated back to the school, and they need to change there's an order for her supervisor to be changed, and that the final defense has to be done within reasonable time. And what I love about this judgment is that it says before the lecturer even goes on appeal, pay her that money first. The judge was because our argument was very strenuous on the lecturer. You know, what baffles me about this case is that he had, after filing and saying, he needed his name to be struck out, it was time for him to come into the witness box, and he never did. And they came and they argued that, he has gone to the US for his doctorate. In the first instance, this guy had just a master's, and you are supervising an academic master's of somebody who is studying something like economics. And my argument in court is that this person is actually supervising his professional colleague. That's number one. Second, you come to the court and you say, well, I am not going to be in court because I am pursuing my doctorate. But you let somebody's academic future in jeopardy. And I had to highlight that to the court, because you see, there is this thing I call the audacity of impunity. How somebody sits and thinks that, he or she is a god, and that they are going to do and undo. So he goes there and he feels, well, nothing is going to happen. And I took that very seriously. So in the coming days, what's going to happen is that there's going to be the enforcement of the judgment. They would have to comply with it. We had already started conversation with the school because, like I said, the school doesn't have so much a liability, and really I wanted to shift it from the university to the individuals who caused this, which is something that we have been able to achieve. But I love that this empowers students to know that nobody has the audacity or the right to hold their future to ransom. Because you see, I am also a lecturer. I lecture in the postgraduate school as a resource lecturer. And I used to think that there was something fantastic about this lecturing that used to make us, you go to the faculties or universities and they want you to do ELESA, ELEMA, then for those who, apart from the sexual harassment, to those people who are asking you to pay money, exorbitant money, or buying their textbook, come on. And that is why our education has not moved. But you see also, the wider spectrum of this conversation is, what is the commitment of the Nigerian government to education? For instance, we keep talking about Boko Haram, and how that they have said education is forbidden. But in a state like Kaduna State, you have students who have been on the street, who are not saying give us money or light or water. They're saying your 500% increase on education is going to pull at least 70% of us out of school, and our lives are going to be in jeopardy. And guess what? Only on Monday, 2 students were killed protesting. Jackie, I cannot begin to tell you what the killing of those 2 students did to my mind. I could never have imagined that we'll get to a point where we can very conveniently cannibalize our young. These students have been on the streets. And look, the situation is so complicated because many of them, their parents are among the thousands that have been thrown out of jobs.
Some of them whose parents are not there, they are managing to do all that they can to go through school. And this Kaduna state government, for instance, came on the promise of, oh, we're going to ensure affordable education. And by the way, that's not a fantastic news, because Section 18 of the 1999 Constitution says that it is the duty of the government to make education affordable and accessible at all levels. And this is something that is not happening. So when you put that side by side with Section 14 that says that the security and the welfare of the people is the primary purpose of government, where is this welfare that we're seeing? It's not light, it's not water, it's not security. Why can't it be education? I mean, why must it be that we are at such a point where everything that the government is doing is in breach and not in compliance to both the Constitution and what the kind of oaths that they swore to? These are the issues that bother me, really.
How would you then respond to, the government too has brought its own side. They say that, education, I mean, the lecturers, they don't pay them with water. They don't pay them with their saliva. They have to pay them their salaries. And of course, we know that there is a lack of basic amenities, for our students in medicine and the rest of it. We're hearing that, look, they need money for these things. And that if we must have quality education, this is a push that we must see. And they say, look, they are willing to provide loans. How would you respond?
First, that whole argument is bladderdash. This is a government, and I use Kaduna State as an example. People know my trajectory with this government. There's nothing personal to it. I just get, sad that every time it's one thing after the other. So somebody takes loan. You take a World Bank. You take another loan, I think, from the Islamic Bank. And you're running the projects of roads. Something that is not going to give money. And you've thrown people out of jobs. You've thrown students out of job. You have an insecurity problem. Everybody in the state is insecure. Then you come and say, oh, we are raising this amount because we are not able to pay salaries. Come on. This is the same government that has argued that its internal revenue generation is so high that they are near to the point where they will only go to the federal government out of courtesy. You can't run a government by propaganda. At some point, you've got to be real with people. And you see, people must matter more than things and projects. Whatever the government is, the first thing that happens is that you care about people before you care about projects. You saw it with developed countries and what happened during COVID. They were giving people food. That was not going to give them any money or put any money into their pockets. But because you cannot run a government of streets and poles and air, it's about the people. So this lack of care about the people, this I don't care whether you live or die, it's just not what government should be about. So that argument, it just falls flat on the face of it. I think that this is a government that doesn't care about people, doesn't care about the welfare of the people, doesn't care about the opinions of people, doesn't care about the suffering of the people. And that's why you see the number of people whose houses are pulled down, businesses are shut down, and they feel like nothing would happen. It's just an unfortunate situation. Of course, the NLC itself is making a comeback because they feel that, of course, because the government has not kept its word. You cannot have a government that thinks that only its opinion is right. You can't. The government must be willing to listen to people and not just think that they're the be all and end all. But you would also agree that
in all of this noise, Gloria, there are voices that are just, the noise is political. It's not about the care of the people. There's a lot of noise right now, especially in Kaduna State, not just from education, from insecurity and the rest of it. But how much of that noise is really coming from a place of growth, encouragement for growth, and not just politicizing an issue that means so much to the people? Now, Gloria, and I stand to be corrected, but is there any clime where you have education cheap? You brought up some issues. We're kind of deviating from holding schools accountable. We'll get back to it. But is there any serious country where education, especially quality of graduates that leave our schools? Are you impressed by it? If not, we know people who have sent children outside this country. They didn't do it lightly. I mean, I'm talking about the financial commitment that they had to put into it. So why would we want something different for ourselves, for instance? I mean, if we're saying that it should be free or close to free, what are we saying? Like, really, are we being realistic?
Okay. There are many questions, and I'm going to answer all.
Okay.
Is there any claim that where education is free? Yes. In every country, the public schools are made for those who do not have the capacity to pay huge amounts. That's why you have a Harvard and you have all the other public universities. It's for a reason that those who cannot afford to go to the Ivy League universities can go to these other schools. There are also other universities that are medium paying universities, but the point is that at every level there should be people who have access to education, because you see, education is the biggest leveler. Now let me tell you, Jackie, part of my concern with the hike of the school fees, the science courses, they're going to pay like twice as much in the 21st century, where we are moving, where we're going tech. What is the idea and the reasoning of making science courses twice as much, which means that you have left it exclusively for those who are the rich and the privileged? So the person who is in the slum is without any opportunity to actually even move up. That's very concerning. The second thing is the issue of those who send their children to school abroad. How many are they? Those who cannot afford to eat square meals, they can't do that. I should add that the LEA primary schools, they have also been asked to pay. I learned, is it 5,000 or so? These are people who, you see these kids when they are going to school.
That story
even
has
the
actually
uniform.
not been confirmed. I actually followed that story. I have not been able to get, something concrete from the government. It's actually 10,000 that we heard that students in the local government authority schools had been asked to pay, but nothing concrete, no official statement from the government. And I've been following up that story. No parent has paid just yet, at least in the schools where I've been. When we open up the phone lines, I stand to be corrected, we'll hear if any parent has paid. We haven't heard that. But Gloria, coming to the issue of, sciences.
Yeah.
You and I were not science students, right? But
I was, by the way.
Okay, you were, and then
before I switched
twisted
to the arts.
to the arts later on. Okay, so you do know that you need chemicals, you need reagents, you need cadavers, you need all sorts of things in the lab. These things don't come cheap, Gloria. It's either we're asking for students to be taught theoretically and let's leave the practical out of it so that we only stick with the lecturer's salary, or we go the whole hog. And talking about schools in other climes where they have different things, it's still not cheap, Gloria. In the United States of America, by the way, they're not the best of examples, but let's take a look at them. They have their colleges, which are the lower institutions, go for about $3,000. That's still not cheap for the average American. There are Americans who go their whole lives and never get up to $1,000 at a stretch to live by. That's the truth. When you talk about the likes of Harvard, we're going to $50-something thousand. So while, this might be something that we need to really, as a matter of fact, we really need to sit and talk about this. But
I think that, Jackie,
wouldn't it be naive for us to say that we don't need this kind of step in that kind of direction? I'm talking about
it's not naive. No, it's not naive. I said to you earlier on, what exactly is the government spending on? They're not spending on water. They're not spending on electricity. There is no form of welfare at all. How is it that education should not be affordable? It doesn't make sense to me. And you need to look at because there's an entire system that makes this not to work. If you send my parent out of job, how are they going to find the money to take me to school? Okay, they are not civil servants. They are doing private business.
but you've also destroyed their market stalls. Okay, they're not market stalls, but they managed to build their houses, but you've also destroyed their houses. I mean, come on. So whichever way, it's like destroying the entire structure. And the truth is that even in it's not just America, in other countries that are interested in building their future, they invest in education. Because as Nelson Mandela would say, that education is the biggest factor that makes the son of the farmer to go up there and meet the other guy up there who has capacity. So you for anybody who comes on the wing of promises, and let me tell you, it's very dishonest for a governor to come and campaign and say, oh, I'm going to ensure education is free for all, and even started to do school feeding, and yet now they're throwing children out of school. The other part to it is that they have argued that there's going to be scholarship
and loans.
So why give scholarship and loans when you can just subsidize the education? You spoke about reagents for science students. As you know, this still will not cover the issue of, there is a systemic issue around education. And for any government that is interested in wanting to move its people forward, you cannot begin to argue that, oh, we need all of that money for reagents. You should be able to provide reagents so that you can have a society where you have all of these people who are tech people and science-based students. So tomorrow, your income revenue generation is high. So however you want to look at it, I'm sorry to say that there is no argument that supports the policy somersault and the insensitivity of the Kaduna State government. There is no way to put it. They are insensitive. The somersaults are not well thought out. And the other issue is that you are speaking about people who went to school in a generation where they did not even pay school fees. They were fed free meals. How is it that now they have made it so difficult that people cannot even have access to the doors of the classroom? It doesn't make any sense. Any government that is interested in moving forward must secure the future of its young people. And if you have a situation where young people are not even able to go to school and you have an insecurity situation, then you see your ideology and Boko Haram's ideology, the styles are different, but the end point is the same. Boko Haram is ensuring people don't go to school, and you are ensuring people don't go to school. So you end up still conflagrating the same issues of insecurity that you probably think that you want to solve. And so it's really a disastrous situation.
If you're just joining us, talking about encouraging accountability in the educational sector in Nigeria, with us in the studio, Gloria Mebea Ballison, and she's been talking to us about her thoughts concerning this. We'll be going on a short commercial break, and when we do get back, we will have you ask your questions of her. Do stay with us. All right, we're back with Gloria Ballison, and we're talking about encouraging accountability in the educational sector. Of course, you do know what started the whole conversation. I told you about a case where a court has found in favor of a student at the University of Jos, a master's student, 5 million to her actually, and then of course there's another 100,000. It's not about the money as much as a whole court of the Federal Republic of Nigeria finding in favor of a student, and for me it is quite eye-opening. Before we open up the phone lines, Gloria Ballison, let's quickly talk about what recourse does the average Nigerian student have where we have situations like this where one man or one woman can just decide that, look, like you said, the audacity of impunity to say, look, I am not going to allow you graduate, or we cannot find your file, and that's how it ends. The student is left roaming or wandering, left to their own devices. What is the recourse of the average Nigerian student? What kind of advice would you like to give?
So the first thing is that no Nigerian student should see himself or herself as average. There is no human being that is more human than another human being. And much as the issue of respect is something that we should give, and I think it should be reciprocal, I believe it should be reciprocal. No one should allow himself or herself to be a victim. A few months ago, I read a post from a professor lecturer about an undergraduate who must have died out of frustration, academic frustration, because he was having artificial, and I can relate. Like I told you, in my undergraduate class, in my 200 level, I asked a question, and because of that question, I carried over the course 3 times. In 400 level, I don't know what I did to that lecturer up till date, but he made me write that course 3 times again. So by the time it was time to go to law school, I almost didn't go to law school until my mom summoned the courage to go and meet the man, because she knew him and she said she needed to know what exactly was the issue. So I mean, I know this firsthand, because that same lecturer for the 400 level, by the time I returned to do my master's in law, he had said, well, he didn't think I had the capacity. Then we show up in a lecturer's meeting in Abuja, and then the guy was very surprised to see that I was being called as a pioneer person in medical law, And that's how this life works. So
just backtrack a bit.
Yes.
What did he tell your mom was his excuse? He just didn't think you had the capacity?
No, he didn't think I have the capacity. I think he just wanted to show that he had powers. In fact, he said that he had increased marks and I never came to say thank you. I didn't know this because in his course people failed. So he just added general marks to all the classes. So I mean, if he did that for all, because there was a mass fail anyway, and he was going to indict him.
By the way, that's an indictment on the lecturer.
Exactly.
Actually, when you have a mass fail.
Exactly. But that happens every day. And this is the kind of thing that happens. But back to the question about what should students do. Students should never allow anybody to hold them to ransom. Not a person, not an institution. And that's why Kaduna State students, beyond just, going out to protest, I think they need to engage the Minister of Education. They need to engage the President. And they need to take the governor to court. They just need to. Because you see, we cannot continue to have a situation where, we let people get away with things. This doesn't make any sense. Especially now that 2 students have been killed. It provides a veritable platform for engagement, that people went to school to study and they're asking for an opportunity and then they're being killed. That's simply unacceptable. The other part is that the student union that we have now needs to be more alive to its responsibility. As you would know, Jackie, before the 60s and the early 60s, the student union groups were the ones that pushed for the independence of many African countries and tried to mold countries to have ideology. That's not even what we have right now. The student union government has been taken over by politicians, and now they have missed out on national discourse, and now also when they even want to agitate for their own rights, they're being killed. But they need to learn, what did others do before that they are no longer doing now? And they need to be able to buy back their credibility, be a government of power, the student union, be accountable. What are the issues in the university, and how can they ensure that when it comes to negotiation, that what they are negotiating for is in the best interest of their own fellow students? That's very important. And for the heads of department, it's interesting how we don't have an absence of checks. Because in the universities, they'll tell you, there are these committees that are set up to ensure that students are not victimized, but they're not working. That's why we have the number of lecturers who sleep around with the female students. That's how we have the number of lecturers who demand bribes from male students and who ensure that people buy their hands out at very high prices and all of that. So even the university system itself, it needs to be able to clean itself up and be alive to the responsibility. The Georgia's case is so heartwarming for me, because now lecturers know that even if the system in the university doesn't hold you accountable, students can go out all by themselves and hold you accountable.
That process isn't cheap. Before I open up the phone lines, that process isn't cheap. To secure the services of of a lawyer.
Oh, by the way, I should let the cat out of the bag. Georgia is my biological sister. And I remember that when this happened, for her, she was no longer interested. Actually, I even said, okay, can you come and do another master's in NDA while we're trying to process this? But frankly, Jackie, she was no longer interested. And why do I say this? You see, for married women, you give birth, the whole toll of taking care of children, taking care of family, and then you try to even move your academic trajectory forward, and these things happen. It just kills it. And that's why we have a lot of women now who don't even make the attempts to better themselves because of all these bottlenecks. You go to work, somebody wants to sleep with you. You go to the university, somebody is messing you up, and all of that. So nothing is going to be cheap in terms of seeking for change and accountability. But you see, the other option is even much more, expensive. It wasn't my sister's idea to say, let's go to court. I went to the university myself and asked to see the vice chancellor to have a conversation. I sent advanced party, at least 2 sets of advanced party to the university to say, okay, let's have a conversation. What actually went wrong? But when people think that, they are so bloated and nobody can do anything, they get the kind of hit that this judge's case comes up with. And it's very heartwarming. I hope that this encourages students to know that they're not alone. It's not just because she's my biological sister, but I do know that upon the face of this country, there are many people who are willing to stand with you, who are willing to support you, who are willing to ensure that you don't die alone. And it's important to not die in silence. Just speak up. You don't know who will come out and help you. I mean, even for me, I don't think my sister believed that this was going to happen. But she sits these days and she wants to pinch herself and ask herself, is this really real? But it's real. It's real. So miracles happen every day. But you see, you've got to believe. And how do you show that you believe? You put your foot forward and you say, thus far can impunity go and no more.
And time for us to hear from you quickly. The numbers are 081 40,000 989 and 070 989. Once again, that's 081 40,000 989 and 070 989. Make it short and to the point. Hello, good evening.
Good evening, madam.
Yes,
good
you're
evening,
welcome.
Madam Gloria.
Good evening.
Yeah. All right.
Yes.
You correct quickly, please.
Yes. Honestly, she has spoken very well. I was listening to the interview of the Secretary of Scholarship, saying what he know how to say. At the end of the day, I told him I doesn't have work. He said I should go and collect my tax. Guess what? That tax, immediately I asked, I was to pay 30,000. My wife, 30,000. How will I get such a huge amount? And I'm not even sure whether my daughter will be given the scholarship. So that's just that. He who don't want to give us.
Is it for scholarship or loan?
It's scholarship she applied. So she have to produce tax clearance.
Okay.
I was expecting that tax clearance is free after the one that I contributed before I left work. They now tell me that I have to pay 30,000. You see, so please, the government should do the needful. You can't just sack people at the end of the day, demolishing their houses. You are expecting students. You hike their school fees. See what happened in Kafanchan. What unfortunate government do we have? Have a wonderful day. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Kure. Good evening. Hello, good evening. Okay, engineer, your line isn't too clear. Speak up, please. Hello?
Very well, and I appreciate every analysis I'm doing. And the first one, just make idea that the question I want to ask, does it mean that the union, the student union, have they compromised? Have they done everything that they cannot stand for their students, that they allow a man,
Engineer, your line isn't clear, really. I know you're asking questions about the student union, but
are you hearing me now? Are you hearing me?
We can hear you, but it's not really clear. No, at all. Please try us back, engineer, so that we don't spend too much time talking about. Can you hear me now? Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Joseph.
Joseph, quickly, please.
Yeah, thank you. So your guest spoke very, very well. The government should just do the needful. It should just do the needful so that our children can be able to get this. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Hello, good evening.
How about now?
Engineer Emmanuel, try. Let's see.
Okay. So what I want to say is this.
Yes.
The student union is like they are not up to their responsibility in protecting.
Engineer Emmanuel, please try the other line, not this one. Let's see if you can get us before the program is over. Hello, good evening.
My name is Abdulaziz.
Abdulaziz, you're welcome. Quickly.
Thank you. In my opinion, this government doesn't.
Hello,
Hello?
Abdulaziz, you
Hello?
were saying yes.
Yes, I was saying that my opinion is this government they don't care about people.
Yeah.
What they after is just money.
That would be very unfair.
Well, I agree with him.
Nothing to them. I'm serious.
Yeah, they don't care about people.
That would be very unfair.
No, it's
because
not
you
unfair.
cannot speak for everyone.
No, but you are looking at the policies.
Abdulaziz, is that all you have to say? Thank you very much. I accept you
Yes.
have something else to say.
No, that's all I have to say.
All right. Thank you very much, Abdulaziz. All right. Still taking your calls this evening, but quickly to our resource person, Gloria, we cannot speak for everyone. If you feel that they don't care about people, what about the people who think that they care about them? They're people.
And who are they? We're talking about
but
people
you
who have been
cannot-
thrown out
you
of jobs,
cannot-
people whose houses have been
But you
destroyed, people.
cannot totally say that this is a
I
government
can
that doesn't-
absolutely say without any apology, without any reservation, that this Kaduna state government is a government that doesn't care about people. And there is no other way to put it.
And you don't stand to be corrected?
I don't stand to be corrected. I have done this in court before. I have taken them to court because of these issues. We are now having a situation where children are going to be killed on Monday. How can we have a government that cannibalizes its young? If we have people who are
it the
thrown out
government?
of jobs,
Was it the government
are we
that-
then? It doesn't really matter. How do you send police, people with little weapons? These children are not
Have
asking
we
for
confirmed?
anything.
No, but
it
have we-
doesn't matter who did it. That they did not even get protection for these children while they were protesting this issue of increment of school fees is unfortunate. There is no way anywhere in the world that you will increase 500% and expect that children will go to school. So yes, Abdulaziz said that it is a government that doesn't care about people. I agree with you. I stand that, and I don't stand to be corrected, and I think it is unfortunate.
Well-
And I think that the Kaduna state government, that because of the groaning of the people, you are the same government that drives people out of the market. You are the same government that ensures that children are not in school. You are the same government that kicks people out of job. You are the same government that demolishes people's houses without any court order. It is unfortunate. It is impunity. It is the audacity of impunity. And this is not how to run a government.
Well, I will say, Gloria, that you do stand to be corrected because there are people. You cannot say everyone holds the same opinion as you hold. It is not fair.
This is
same
about
way-
the public.
No,
It's
hold
not
on.
about the few privileged. It is not about the few
The
privileged.
privileged, as you put it in quote, are they not a part of the state? Are they not a part of the country?
Jackie, this is a government
And
of
so-
the people. And there is no way,
And the people,
nowhere
the
you can
people
have this situation.
Well, Gloria Balasin, we're going to have to go now. I see that they're telling us that it is time. It's always wonderful to see because we have the kind of discussions that we should be having. But at the same time, I would say that it's very unfair because there are people who are benefiting, and those people you cannot exclude
The
them.
few people
from the
cannot
people.
benefit at the expense of the majority.
They are still
and that is why
part
it is not an unfair
of the
statement for
people.
Abdulaziz to say it. I also hold the opinion. Thousands of people who have lost their job hold the opinion. The parents of these children who cannot afford this hold the opinion. I am a lecturer myself. I know the kind of difficulty that students go in to get into school. So it is an unfortunate situation. This is a government that is not, we're paying for
Okay,
electricity,
Gloria,
we're paying
we
for,
have to go.
for
We are
security,
about to
we're
launch
paying
into
for
another
all-
tirade. We're about to go.
So this just needs to stop. At the minimum, children should go to school.
children should go to school. We'll have this conversation again, because then again we could ask, is it everyone that is supposed to go that far for tertiary institutions? Yeah.
For all those who want to go, they should have an open door to be able to have access to education. That's what Section 18 says. And no government or any institution can act in breach of the Constitution and think that they're acting in consonance with the law.
How come we haven't even had lawyers taking that up? Since you bring it up, that it's in the Constitution, we don't see your branch of government doing something about this.
Well,
we are waiting for the students.
You invited me because I just took a case of a student to court.
Yes.
And it's going to have a boomerang effect for other students. What that judgment does really is to give them access into the court and to claim this as a precedent. And I hope that they can run on this and do all that they can. But I honestly hope that our students in Kaduna State are back from the street. It breaks my heart every time to go out and see them.
They've started registration. They've started registration.
Sadly, those who can afford, but there are going to be many people in their hundreds and thousands who can't afford, and it's unfortunate.
What about other schools? There are other options.
But what options?
Other schools.
How many of them are assimilated in school?
How many people
who apply to university, to ABU, for instance, have access to ABU? How many people who apply to all of these other institutions have access? Those who went to Africa, the monotechnics, for instance, they were kidnapped. So it's an unfortunate situation. Those who even went to Greenfield with their own money were kidnapped.
Okay, so, we have completely left.
It's a zero-sum game.
It isn't. How do we even put that back at the feet of the government? The fact that these children were kidnapped. Don't answer that, Gloria. Don't launch into another tirade.
Well, we've got to go because you said we've got to go. But I wish the students well. I wish them God's protection. I know that God will guide you, that God will keep you. This is my prayer for you. Because even for us, we didn't have it this bad. We didn't have to go out to protest for something like access to the classroom. Okay. So I'm praying that God will stand on your side and something will give.
Gloria Ballison has been with us on Spot On this evening. Hopefully we'll have her back some other time. Until then, let's continue to encourage discussions like this, because it helps me see your side and it helps you see my perspective. Until then, continue to have a victorious week.